111. One, one, one. Okie dokie. Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, it started off with 10 runners and riders. We're now down to 2, and it is the final hustings tonight between Jeremy Hunt and Boris Johnson. We'll get the result in the middle of next week. We will know who the next leader of the Conservative Party is and who our next Prime Minister is. Now, LBC's Ian Dale will once again be in the chair, asking the questions himself, taking questions from an audience of Conservative Party members, and I'm sure there are still quite a lot of people out there amongst that 160,000 people who've got the chance to vote for this that still have not sent their ballot papers back. So it does really matter. The coverage here on LBC will be from 7 o'clock. Clive Bull will be building up to that debate. Then at 7:30 it'll be live with Ian Dale, and you can hear it on LBC. You can go to lbc.co.uk and watch it being live streamed. Equally, you can watch it through Facebook, you can watch it through YouTube, so it's out there. You can follow it, and I guess it's a great honour for LBC that Ian Dale is there chairing this debate. But I wonder, we've heard all sorts of conversation. You've seen the questions that have been asked, but this is the last chance to ask these two a question. So what would be the final killer question you would ask these candidates tonight? And if perhaps you think it has to be about Brexit because that is the defining issue of our age, call me on 0345 6060 973. Maybe you think it's about their personal lives and their integrity to lead the country. Some do, certainly. In which case, please text to 84850. And is it about what they would do once Brexit's delivered, or is that just too far in the distance? I don't know. Maybe you think it is, in which case tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. Facebookers, YouTubers, you can send in your comments and questions too. Pauline says, hi Nigel, I would like to ask the two candidates, what are you going to do about Burko? Oh, I like this. As I see it, nothing will change with him as a Remainer, constantly blocking Brexit. Well, I've got some sympathy with that. Peter in Lansing says, I would ask, come the 31st of October, will it be another trick or Brexit treat? Well, I think that will get asked several times tonight. Let's ask Bill in Exmouth, my first caller. Bill, what would you ask? What would your final killer question be to these two?
Good evening, Nigel.
Good
How
evening.
are you?
I'm all right.
Basically, I'd like to ask two things. How can we trust a guy called Johnson that goes to the High Court to hide information that he had a love child? Now, if he's prepared to do this, can we trust anything?
Did he?
Yeah,
Did he?
yes.
I'm not sure. I do know quite a well-known BBC television presenter who did that. I'm not sure Boris did that, but
I think I'm led to believe that's the case. But I mean, I stand corrected. Okay, I'm scared. But one thing I would say, I think with Johnson, he's just likely to actually leave us without no deal, as he's more likely to revoke it. Personally, I think. I mean, I have no trust in that man at all. I think he continually tells fabrications, whether he loses his bike, and I simply do not trust him. And I think with the question over the former Secretary of State for Health, I think he's more likely to privatise it than he is to assist it for its longevity, personally.
Bill, do I detect that you're not a Conservative voter, Bill?
I mean, no, I used to be a Labour voter, but I don't like Corbyn, so there's no way I can vote for anyone at the present time. But you would be quite correct in your assumption of me, sir.
Yeah, okay, no, I kind of thought that might be the case. What we heard earlier, when Ian Dale was talking to Sheila Earle this afternoon, is he made the point, and don't forget, Ian, this will be the 10th hustings that Ian has done with these two people. So Ian has seen, face-to-face, thousands of Conservative members at these hustings. And the point Ian made was that as soon as Boris starts to talk, that particular part of the electorate, not you, Bill, I know, but that particular part of the electorate, smile and they think Boris makes them feel optimistic, and they view Boris as an election winner. Is it possible, Bill, that this man, who twice won the contest to be the Mayor of London, actually is an election winner? We've lost the line. Bill's gone. In disgust. I don't know. Robert is calling from Rochester. Robert, good evening to you.
Good evening, and how are you? When it comes to the question, I think is a killer question, which is how Brexit is going to leave this country. And the question that I would ask is, how are you going to stop corporations dictating the terms of how we move into the rest of the world? And I think that's
I think the counter argument would be, certainly from Brexiteers, Robert, that it's the corporations that totally dictate nearly all of the law that comes out of Brussels, and that all of our businesses have to comply with already.
And that's exactly the point that I'm trying to make. So therefore, if we want to have a country that actually listens to the electorate rather than listening into big business, saying words like economy and stuff like that, rather than what taxpayers want. And as we've moved from an economy where most companies, the highest cost that they had was wages, we've moved to it's now shareholders and other costs, and the wage bill is a smaller proportion of their percentage. And I'd like a country that actually the workers are actually valued.
Yeah, and not just the workers, Robert. What about the 5.6 million people now in our country that run their own small businesses or act as sole traders? They're the ones that feel the most put upon, aren't they, by legislation?
Oh, definitely. And to be a country that can open up new businesses, make other countries benefit at the same time, we have got an opportunity to actually capitalise on countries which have just been seen as too dangerous because their products are too cheap, because their labour is too cheap.
Yeah, I mean, the point that is made, and I know Jacob Rees-Mogg, obviously very keen Brexiteer, makes this point, and Tim Martin, who's the boss of Wetherspoons, makes this point, that there are 12,500 household products that come into this country from outside the European Union that we put tariffs on, and that maybe there's an opportunity here to reduce prices. Do you buy that argument, Robert?
Yes, 100%.
100%.
Yes.
Do you think Boris buys that argument?
I'm not. I'm sceptical of Boris, as I am with. I'm very much more sceptical of Hunt, but at least he's a Brexiteer. So,
But hang on. Hunt's now a born-again Brexiteer. He's been telling us all through the hustings. Surely you believe him, Robert?
Well, in his own words, he said he wouldn't mind pushing back Brexit. And at least with Boris, there have been two words which is mentioned. Number one, he's mentioned repealing the 1972 Act. And number two, he's mentioned October is the final deadline.
Well, you're right. He has said it again and again and again, and it will be unavoidable if he wins next week, which he probably will. He's going to have to deliver, or he's going to be in very, very big trouble indeed. Robert, thank you for making that point, and it's a good point, and we talk too little about the fact that so many goods we buy from outside the European Union have tariffs put upon them. We should debate it more, in my view. Kathy in Southampton says, I would like to ask, what are you going to do about law and order? Kathy, it's such a huge issue that people, particularly living in our cities, are talking about. And we obsess about knife crime in London because it's so shocking. But actually, pro rata, if you look at crime in the West Midlands, Liverpool, you could argue in those areas, it's actually worse than it is in London. It's just not getting the same degree of coverage. Let's go to Will, who's a new caller, and he lives in Bexley Heath. Good evening, Will.
Hello, how are you?
I am well. So come on, what's that killer question, Will? What's the one that sorts the men out from the boys?
I would purely ask Boris if he didn't manage to take us out on the 31st, whether he would seek your counsel where Brexit was concerned, and not necessarily do some type of deal, but if if things didn't go the right way and we did go to a general election, whether there would be some form of deal, maybe for want of a better word, between the Brexit Party and the Conservatives. And where Mr Hunt is concerned, I would very much just like to know what his vision is, because I think most MP Remainers, ever since the Democratic vote got taken some 2.5-3 years ago, the only thing they've wanted to do is block anything that Brexit has stood for, which is completely against democracy.
To be fair to Hunt, he was the first of the cabinet ministers that advocated backing Remain, that very clearly said, we've had a democratic result and we have to deliver it. Now, how much you believe that or not is entirely, Will, up to you. But I think you're right, because for me, the killer question to these candidates is, in order to deliver Brexit on the 31st of October, if you are frustrated by Parliament, do you have the courage to put this to the country? And I'm with you, Will. I think that is the absolutely key question. And I look at Boris, who is likely to win, as we know, and he's wanted to be Prime Minister since he was 15. So for 40 years, he's coveted this job. Is he really going to risk it just to keep a campaign promise?
Again, I think everyone will have their own opinion, and you would like to think that he is a man of integrity and would keep his word. Is he going to risk something that he's dreamt of for 40 years? As many people have said on your show before, no one has a crystal ball. I think if he did, I think he would need to talk to yourself and your party to make sure that he got back in, because the last thing, from a personal point of view, and I think other people in this country, hopefully many other people in this country, I would hate to see the Labour Party get in. That's my personal opinion. So I would hope that Boris was sensible enough and came and sought your counsel, and I would hope that together you guys could come to some agreement to get a new a new government, and hopefully we can get this situation sorted out. So we can all just move on. I think everybody
get
on
on
both
and
sides,
get it done and get on with the rest of our lives. Well, I think you're absolutely on the money. I think that is the absolute killer question for Boris tonight, and I hope Ian Dale asks it. And if he doesn't answer, I hope he asks it again. Will, I thank you. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show live from Strasbourg. It is now 16. Time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
The brother of the Manchester Arena bomber who killed 22 people in 2017 has been extradited to the UK from Libya and is due before a judge tomorrow. In her last major speech as Prime Minister, Theresa May said she did everything she could to get her Brexit deal with Brussels through the Commons, including putting her job on the line. A man's been convicted of raping and murdering a 15-year-old British girl found dead on a beach in Goa in India 11 years ago. LBC weather, a warm, dry night ahead, but with showers spreading eastwards across England and also the far northwest, a low of 8 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Anne-Marie Walsh. A couple of things on the M25 clockwise. It is queuing from junction 23 for South Mims towards 25 for Enfield after a van broke down earlier. Also on the clockwise side, it is queuing from the Cobham services towards junction 11 at Chertsey. That was after an accident earlier on the trains on South Western Railway. There are delays of up to 40 minutes and some cancellations at Waterloo after a line-side fire earlier. And Greater Anglia services are suspended between Stratford and Tottenham Hale because of a fault on a train at Lee Bridge.
LBC.
I'm here with Simon at the Volkswagen retailer. Simon, what's going on?
Oh, hello. Well, we're getting ready for the SUV range event. Jack's giving the final polish to the Tuaregs, Tiguans, T-Rocks and T-Crosses. Polly's putting up the posters over there. And Greg's organising flasks of hot tea to give to people outside in the queue.
Queue?
Oh, yeah. They've been there all night.
Blimey. They're keen. Well, I haven't tasted Greg's tea yet.
The Volkswagen SUV range event from the 5th to the 21st of July. With offers on all our models, it's too good to miss.
What is it, Greg?
They're asking if we have any biscuits.
Excludes Northern Ireland. Participating retailers only. Subject to availability. T's and C's apply.
LBC. Is 2019 the most confusing year ever? Fake lips, speaking fake news, eating fake meat. Let's put it to a vote. After vote, after vote. But are we being listened to by our home devices?
No.
They don't have the answer. Get past the confusion with the Confused.com Beat Your Renewal Quote Guarantee. If you can't beat your renewal quote, you get the difference plus £20. Don't be confused. BeConfused.com. T's and C's online, single annual policies only.
If your boiler needs replacing, listen to this. Right now, LS1 Boiler Installation could install a brand new fuel-efficient Worcester Bosch boiler with £250 off. What's more, there's zero deposit to pay up front and 0% interest-free finance. Thinking of a new boiler? Think LS1 Boiler Installation. Get an instant quote at ls1boilerinstallation.co.uk. Conditions apply.
Parents, you know your child. You know the way they learn is different to others, and Inter High School knows this too. For 15 years, Inter High has specialised in providing a fully interactive, tailored online school, supporting your child to achieve their best results from primary school age through to A-level. To discover more about Inter High School, join their next online open evening on the 7th of August. Register at interhigh.co.uk.
Hello, James from Park News Agents here. The talk of the shop is that this Wednesday, the Lotto jackpot must be won. Oh, I knew those trumpet lessons would come in handy. Don't miss it!
Lotto from the National Lottery. Amazing starts here. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Goodwin Barrett helped William win £21,400 from the Halifax for his missold investment. If the Halifax or any other bank sold you an investment that lost money, start your quick assessment to discover how much you could be owed. Text GOOD to 60777. Text GOOD to 60777 now.
Looking for your perfect kitchen? Visit roomsense.co.uk.
Quality at a price you can afford. That's Room Sense.
This is LBC, live from Strasbourg, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
At 7:30 tonight, LBC's Ian Dale will chair the final hustings with Jeremy Hunt and with Boris Johnson. You can watch it all on lbc.co.uk or, of course, listen to it on the radio. I'm asking you, what is the final killer question that you think these candidates should be asked? Now, talking of killer questions, earlier on today, the Exiting the European Union Select Committee was meeting and our Brexit Secretary was there, Stephen Barclay, in the chair and being asked questions, and Hilary Benn asked a couple of questions, and I think when you listen to the response, you'll think they probably were killer questions. And when you listen to this exchange, just have in the back of your mind, do you think the British government are really prepared and committed to Brexit? Let's hear it.
In the event of no deal, the UK government takes control of UK waters.
What will the policy be on the 1st of November?
So the policy will be to seek a continuity approach.
What?
I will happily send it out in more detail.
What?
The policy will be to seek a continuity approach, but in the absence of that, then French fishing vessels will not have access to UK waters. Is that correct?
Well, the legal position in the event of no deal, but it is in our mutual interest to come to reciprocal arrangements.
But in the event of there not being a continuity agreement, will the British government's policy be to say, carry on?
Let me, as I say, I'll set it out in more detail, but it is in our reciprocal arrangements.
So you're right about that. That's very helpful.
Pathetic. That is the Brexit Secretary. They've had 3 years. They know that one of the big things people voted Brexit for was to take back control of our territorial waters. And it would appear that if we leave on the 31st of October on a WTO deal and under international law are fully entitled to take back control of 200 miles from our coastline or the median line, namely in the Channel and places like that, it would appear they haven't got a clue what they're going to do other than seek a continuity approach, which means we would continue. And I have to say, for the last 3 years, I've made the point that the acid test of Brexit will be, do we take back control of our territorial fishing waters, give the British fishing industry a chance, and put in place some environmental protection measures to really help our stocks. And I am just not confident that this government believe in it enough. I really thought that was. And, you know, I'm not a Hilary Benn fan, but it did prove, didn't it, to be a killer question. So is there a question like that that could be asked tonight of Boris Johnson and Jeremy Hunt that got them into a muddle. Mind you, Boris often sounds like he's in a muddle, but he kind of gets away with it because people just smile. Let's ask Ahmed in New Malden. Good evening to you.
Good evening to you, Nigel. Thank you for taking the call. Yes, can I just say one thing? It looks very likely Boris Johnson is going to be Prime Minister. I'm surprised that Tories, despite all the treachery never seen before in Conservative Party, they would vote for Boris Johnson. The thing is...
Treachery. Ahmed, you just used the word treachery.
Yes.
Could you just explain that?
Parliamentary proceedings, all the MPs, you've never seen such treachery, I think. Okay, maybe Theresa May's deal was not perfect, but he would have given us a way out. We would have stayed in with all the benefits and so on.
No, Ahmed, it was a trap.
Well, possibly, yes, you could say, but we could always come out.
Well, I could say that. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
The biggest problem, I mean, they suckered Theresa May. She left Downing Street at 4:15 that morning on the 8th of December, and off she went, 2017, and off she went, and she had a deadline given to her by an unelected bureaucrat called Monsieur Barnier, and that's the day she signed up to the backstop. And Ahmed, the backstop meant either we effectively cede a part of the United Kingdom, namely Northern Ireland, or we're stuck in the customs union, possibly forever. I mean, it was a rotten deal. And I don't think, I really take issue with you. I think those MPs, and there were 28 Conservatives who on all three occasions voted against that new treaty. I don't believe treachery is the right word because they were actually being consistent with the Conservative general election manifesto of 2017.
Well, yes, but still, there was a time, there was a clause that get out clause at the end of the day. Obviously, we would have to pay the cost for that, but there was a get out
ransom.
Clause.
You mean, Ahmed? Ransom. That's what it was.
Well,
I tell you what.
Okay. But the thing is, Boris, he's a cad and a bounder. Despite all his blabbing, he has not answered the main question, the critical question: will we come out of EU on 31st of October? And he's not going to say that. And what if Parliament stops him? What will he do? He's not. Why can't he just say so now?
No, that is the killer question. That is the killer question.
Yes.
The killer question is, if Parliament stops you coming out, will you hold a general election on the issue?
Yes.
That is the killer question. But do you think if he's asked it tonight, that he will answer it?
Well, I think despite all his blabbing, he's not going to answer that. He's not going to answer that.
He's very good at not answering questions, yeah.
Well, because, the terminology he uses is beyond most people. Instead of, saying it straight in very simple words, he uses very, very, cleverly worded phraseology.
Yeah.
Which, bamboozles everybody.
You don't trust him at all, do you?
Well, we've seen his track record. He does not. He has no time for protocol or anything like that. We've seen that.
Well, maybe we're living in an age. I mean, look at Donald Trump in America. I mean, Donald Trump hasn't got much time for protocol, but he's pretty effective.
That's true.
Whether you like him or not, he's very, very effective. Maybe Boris is going to really surprise you.
Well, maybe he does have a certain disarming charm, I say, as I said before.
There we are. 2 minutes ago, you said he's a cad and a bounder, and now you say he's got disarming charm.
But despite that, people voted for him. I just can't believe it. America, what have you done? And now we're going to do the same.
Well, I tell you what, if we reach a level of 3.1% growth in our country under Boris, I'd be thrilled. I doubt we'll see it. Ahmed, thank you for your call and your humour. Stuart is a new caller to the show from Barrow in Furness. Good evening, Stuart.
Good evening, Nigel. Killer question.
Yes.
If you are successful, would you appoint your opponent onto your cabinet? And if so, in what position?
Okay, so this is the how collegiate are they going to be? How do you think they would answer that, Stuart?
Crikey. I'm pretty sure that Boris would say, oh, yes, Jeremy can continue as Foreign Secretary.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jeremy would struggle. With Boris being a backbencher, he would struggle to kind of think of a job to give Boris. But it would be interesting to see what they would say if they were asked the question.
Yeah, I must admit, this reminds me of the question in those really vicious debates that took place between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. They were asked a question at one debate, what's the nicest thing you can say about your opponent? And I thought that was a very, very good question. And in fact, Hillary did manage to say something nice about him. Hillary did say that she thought his children were a credit to him. And Trump in turn said, I admire her persistence. For 30 years, she's campaigned for all the wrong things on Capitol Hill. So I do remember that. And it was quite entertaining. Stuart, this is a very interesting point. I mean, because it leads on to a bigger debate. Let's assume Boris wins, all right? Will Boris adopt a collegiate approach to cabinet, or will he say, no, we've absolutely got to have committed Brexiteers in the top position? Because my view, Stuart, is this. Unless he gets rid of people like David Lidington, the acting deputy prime minister, unless he gets rid of Philip Hammond, that Eeyore who does his best to say terrible, miserable things about Brexit, unless he gets a team of people around him that believe in leaving on the 31st of October, it isn't going to happen. What's your view on that?
Well, yeah, you make a valid point there. When he's talking about proroguing Parliament, I think it's probably a good strategy. My particular MP is a Remainer, in spite of 61% of his constituents wanting to leave.
Yep.
And it is the case for many an MP. David Cameron said prior to the referendum, this is your vote. It's an in or out. There'll be no further negotiations. Those negotiations have been done.
Yeah.
So it's up to you.
And we will abide by the results, Stuart. That's what they said, wasn't it?
Yeah. So why are the MPs being so resistant? So yeah, I think you've got a point. If Boris wins, which he's likely to do, yes, he should surround himself by Brexiteers.
The right people, absolutely. Stuart, thank you for your call. Great stuff. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here, live from Strasbourg at 6:30, and time for the news with Lisa Aziz.
The brother of the Manchester Arena bomber is expected to appear in court in London tomorrow to face murder charges. Hashim Abedi has been extradited from Libya to the UK today. 22 people died in the terror attack at a pop concert 2 years ago. In her last major speech as Prime Minister, Theresa May told an audience in London she is worried about the state of politics and fears people are becoming much more uncompromising. Tonight, the two Tory leadership candidates hoping to replace her will take part in their final hustings event hosted by LBC's Ian Dale. A man's been convicted of the rape and murder of a 15-year-old British girl in Goa 11 years ago. Police in India initially said Scarlett Keeling, who was from Bideford in Devon, accidentally drowned. LBC weather, a warm night ahead, but with showers spreading eastwards across England, northern and western parts turning drier, isolated downpours for the far northwest, a low of 8 degrees.
This is LBC.
What would your question to the next Prime Minister be? What would you do to restore the trust of the public in the Conservative Party?
What he's going to do about the gun crime and the knife crime in our youth.
Do you see the 31st of October as being the ultimate deadline for Brexit, or can you see it being kicked down the road for another 6 months?
What's his stance on the legalisation of marijuana for medical uses and recreational uses?
It's decision time for Conservative Party members at the London hustings. Join me, Ian Dale, as I question Jeremy Hunt and Boris Johnson for the final time at XL London. This evening from 7 on LBC.
I'm not the most natural of dancers, as anybody who see me at a wedding would probably testify, but I'll give it a go. And now Tesco are bringing the nation together with Dance Beats, an amazing dance marathon raising money for some brilliant charities.
July 18th to the 20th, get involved with Dance Beats and raise money for Cancer Research UK, the British Heart Foundation and Diabetes UK. It's your chance to step up, shake it down and move your feet to help beat cancer, beat heart diseases and fight diabetes. Whether you dance at home or at your local Tesco store, get involved. Search Tesco Dance Beats to find out more. LBC supports this message.
If you lost money on an investment sold by a bank, find out how much you could be owed in compensation. Text GOOD to 60777 and Goodwin Barrett will call you back.
The world's biggest tent has an entire mini golf course inside. Think that's big? In this Friday's Euro Millions, there are 20 UK millionaires guaranteed. Now that's big.
Euro Millions from the National Lottery. Amazing starts here.
Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Divorce can be expensive. It affects your finances, assets, home, savings, pension, and most of all, your relationship with your children. It's probably one of the toughest times you'll ever go through. Cordell & Cordell understands these issues and helps men maximise their roles in their children's lives. Call now on 0330 60 60 161 or visit cordellcordell.co.uk. Office in central London. A partner men can count on.
Block management? It's a doddle, isn't it? I mean, once you've got budget approval, all you need to do is your service charge invoices,
health and safety regulations paperwork, do the cleaning, the gardening, general maintenance, sort out site inspections, arrange contracts, insurance, emergency representation.
Yes, block management. Such a doddle.
Save time and money and cut down on the stress. For complete block management solutions, just call ABC Estates. ABC will take care of all your day-to-day management, leaving you as happy as Larry.
For complete block management solutions, see abcestates.co.uk or call 0800 888 6688.
Alexa, call Dave.
Calling Dave.
Yep.
Guess what?
You got an Amazon Echo Plus from Vodafone for switching to their superfast home broadband, and now you're calling me with it.
Yeah, I did. Switch to Vodafone Unlimited Superfast Home Broadband and get an Amazon Echo Plus on us. Superfast 1 is only £21 a month for pay monthly mobile customers for 18 months, plus $9.99 router fee. Hurry, offer ends 13th of August. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone. Subject to credit check, acceptance and availability. Sequence shortened, Alexa calling to be enabled. Visit vodafone.co.uk/broadband.
The Nigel Farage Show, live from Strasbourg, only on LBC.
It's the final debate tonight between, of course, Jeremy Hunt and Boris Johnson, and we'll know within a few days who the next Prime Minister of our country is going to be. And the man who has got the privilege of being the ringmaster for this final hustings, although he's done about 10 of them, I think, so far, is, of course, LBC's own Ian Dale. And he joins me now, live from the Excel Centre. Ian, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel.
So you've done a lot of these. Do you expect any surprises tonight?
This is the 10th one that I've done, and I have to say I'm feeling slightly nervous about this one because it is the biggest. I know 3,000 for you isn't a big audience, a live audience, but it is for me, so I am slightly nervous about this. Look, surprises, I hope there will be a couple.
Yes.
It's the similar format to what we've had before, but we're going to do completely spontaneous questions from the floor. They've not been checked, and I don't know who the questions are going to be, so they're all going to be completely spontaneous, so that has a potential to go terribly wrong, obviously, but it's up to me to control it, I guess. But up to now, most of the questions that I've had at all the 9 previous hustings have been really good. I've been actually really proud of the people who've got up. They haven't just asked the normal questions, can you guarantee that we're coming out on the 31st of October? They've actually gone into a lot of different issues, which I think a lot of the journalists have been quite surprised by.
But Brexit presumably is the defining issue amongst this electorate of 160,000 people.
Well, it is, and obviously the two candidates address it in their speeches. I address it in the questions that I asked to them. We did have one hustings where not a single question from the floor was on Brexit. So there are so many other things that they do want to talk about. Because let's say if Boris Johnson wins, or even if Jeremy Hunt wins, and they do get us out on the 31st of October, there's
a lot to talk about, isn't there?
You and I are both sceptical about whether they'll actually do that. But if they do, there's a huge amount to talk about that actually hasn't really been done over the last 3 years.
No, I agree with that. And those questions and those answers are really interesting. And Ian, what about their personalities, their personal lives? I mean, when you did the first hustings, it was within, 48 hours of us hearing about the police being called rightly or wrongly to a domestic row. Yeah. And I saw you ask Boris again and again and again questions about it, and he steadfastly refused to answer. Is this still an issue, or has it sort of simmered away a bit?
Well, it has simmered away. We can all speculate about why that is. Some people say, well, journalists haven't been pursuing it as they should do. Boris has escaped yet again. But on the other hand, if he's not going to say anything, how do you keep the story going? And in a sense, I think a lot of people thought maybe it was hyped up a little bit beyond what it was at the time. I mean, there's a story in the papers today about does he dye his hair, which I'm very tempted to ask him tonight. But then if I do, then no doubt people say, no, what a silly question. Why didn't you ask him about unemployment?
Dale has cheapened the debate.
Exactly.
I know.
So I'll tell him you told me to.
Well, that's fine. And Ian, and I'm sorry to hear you're a bit nervous, but you need to be before a big performance, I think, and that matters. And I'm sure you'll do a great job. And presumably, once this big event's over, you'll be going out for a drink or two.
If only, Nigel, because I know that's what you would do after a big event like this.
Absolutely.
But unfortunately, I've got to climb on the back of one of these limo bikes and get back to Leicester Square because for some reason Tom Swarbrick has taken the night off. So I'm going to be doing his show from the LBC studio from 10.
You must be off your rocker, Dale. That's all I can say. Absolutely off your rocker.
But I'm saying no.
But I admire your work ethic. Ian, I hope it goes really well. Thank you.
Cheers, Nigel.
Well, there you are. He's going to come. So he's going to have a very, very short period of time to get from East London back into Leicester Square. And then he's going to go on from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Got to rather admire that, I think. I certainly do. So what about killer questions? Come on, Gary. You're a new caller from Glasgow. What would your killer question be?
Hi, Nigel. So my killer question would be to both Jeremy and Boris Johnson. What will you do when the Scottish Government calls an independence referendum after Brexit?
Yep, that would be a very good, very fair question. What do you think they would answer, Gary?
I think they'll both try and block it. Okay, but I think ultimately that will not go down well with the Scottish electorate. I think if you look at the opinion polls in Scotland, most people now feel that an independence referendum is very valid, given that Scotland voted 62% to stay in the European Union.
Yeah, I just wish that word independence wasn't used, Gary. It's so false, isn't it? Because they want to be part of the European Union. I mean, we heard yesterday, from the new boss of the European Union that it's to become a United States of Europe. You can't be an independent Scotland as part of that, can you?
Well, we're not independent as part of the United Kingdom, are we?
No. We are in a political union. Absolutely. They're not, that is what the UK is.
And we were in an economic union and a semi-political union with the European Union, which we wish to remain part of, but we've been taken out of it against our will.
But Gary, if you stay in the European Union, Scotland will not be independent.
It will, Nigel, because it'll have an influence at the European table.
You've got no influence at all. You're a tiny little country. You've got a titchy population of 5 million. Haven't you seen what's happened? The French and Germans run this place. Nobody else matters.
Yeah. Well, hold on. Let me just then talk about the United Kingdom. What governments do we get in the United Kingdom? We've never voted in the last 50 years for a Conservative government, yet we keep getting them. So we've got no influence in the United Kingdom either.
Well, you had Tony Blair in 97. You had the Labour Party again in 2001. You had the Labour Party again in 2005.
How many?
Well, hang on. I've just given you a big chunk
of governments.
But I've just given you, haven't I? I've just given you a very, very long time span in which Labour were the government of the country, and most seats from Scotland came from the Labour Party.
But they don't anymore, do they?
Well, come on. Just because one set of elections or two set of elections don't go your way, the argument doesn't go. Gary, we are getting sidetracked because I feel very strongly about the word independence. But Gary, it is a perfectly fair question that would be asked of the candidates, and I think they would both do their very best not to answer it. Thank you for your call. We will discuss that issue again at great length, I am sure. Mary is a new caller from Waterloo. Good evening to you, Mary.
Hello. Sorry, I just completely went quiet there. Thank you for speaking to me. Are we on the air?
We're live, yes.
We're live. Completely unprepared. Thank you for taking my call, and great show as ever. I was just wondering, if I was able to put a question to the candidates, I would ask them both, at what stage would they publish a risk register for whatever outcomes they had resolved with Brexit, because as you probably know, Nigel, whenever a business takes a decision, then we have to look at the country as a business, because it is about generating economic growth and social growth. You tend to put a risk register, best, middling, worst case scenario, along a timeline with an evidence base as to what has been achieved, what will be achieved, and what's realistic.
The trouble with that phrase "evidence based" is it doesn't work for future economic forecast, and future economic forecast.
Well, it has to be completely independent.
Well,
I do get that.
We tend to rely on Treasury forecasts, which use, I think, incredibly outdated and very narrow thinking. The problem with this is it's very, very difficult. It depends, which economic model you use. So it's very, very difficult. It's very difficult to predict the future. But what you can do as part of your risk assessment is to say, look, what happens if we do have a major problem with X, Y, or Z. My understanding of all of this is when it comes to some of the big fears that people had, such as the air, some of the ludicrous things we were told, that aeroplanes wouldn't fly and all the rest of it, that actually these agreements have been put in place with the EU already. I just think, and I understand why you're asking what you're saying, but I do think that any forward economic modelling is very, very difficult.
So how do people plan? How do the people who rely on the ports of Dover and the ports of Southampton, because obviously a lot of our food comes from Europe, a lot of deals haven't yet been resolved with the other countries, how do we prepare? It's like we're going into a scenario where it's really unknown, and there doesn't seem to be enough from what I've heard, and that's not that I read every single newspaper and listen to all the fantastic programmes on LBC. It's hard to insure yourself against it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the truth of it is that we did do a significant amount of no-deal planning, and then suddenly the government stopped no-deal planning for reasons that I find quite incredible, other than, of course, they don't really believe in Brexit, most of them. I think over here, and I'm speaking to you from the European Parliament, I think in terms of no-deal planning, actually the EU think to themselves they're in a pretty good place in terms of the work that they've done. But when it comes to planning, I mean, so many things we've done wrong. I mean, how do we plan for schools? How do we plan for hospitals? How do we plan for roads?
We have a long-term strategic plan.
But the problem is, with open door migration, that's proved to be impossible since 2004. Mary, I think the truth of it is we've just been very badly governed, haven't we?
Swings and roundabouts. I think that there's positives and negatives in every government that we have. That's the nature of democracy. But it's the level of unplanned for risk, which I think is making business anxious. Okay. It's making me as a householder anxious. How do we resolve it? That's the big question.
Well, I think the real answer is the sooner we get Brexit and get on with it and know where we are, the better. And tell me, will you be listening at 7:30 to this debate?
Yes, I will do.
Or will you watch it on lbc.co.uk?
I've never done that before. I'll probably listen to it on the radio.
All right, you are a radio addict and you don't want to watch it. That's fact. Listen, absolute pleasure to have you on the show this evening. Thank you. And remember, everybody, after I come off air, from 7 o'clock, Clive Bull will be taking over. He'll do the build-up to the debate, and then from 7:30, it'll be Ian Dale for the next hour and a half, chairing that debate. And then, if you haven't had enough of Ian Dale, he'll be on from 10 p.m. until 1 a.m. tomorrow morning, which is pretty incredible. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, live from Strasbourg. It's 6:46. Time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
The brother of the Manchester Arena bomber who killed 22 people in May 2017 has been extradited to the UK from Libya and is due before a judge tomorrow. In her last major speech as Prime Minister, Theresa May said she did everything she could to get her Brexit deal with Brussels through the Commons, including putting her own job on the line. Boris Johnson and Jeremy Hunt are preparing to take part in their final hustings of the leadership campaign, hosted by LBC's Ian Dale. LBC weather, a warm, dry night ahead, but with showers spreading eastwards across England and the far northwest, a low of 8 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Anne-Marie Walsh. On the trains on South Western Railway, delays of up to 40 minutes and some cancellations at Waterloo after a line-side fire earlier. To the roads on the M25 clockwise, it is queuing from junction 23 at South Mims towards 25 at Enfield. After a breakdown earlier, one lane is closed. Also clockwise, queuing from junction 10 for the A3 towards 11 at Chertsey after an accident earlier. And in Hammersmith, it's very slow on roads around the Hammersmith Gyratory because of the Extinction Rebellion demonstration.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Clive Bull.
Join me as we bring you the final Conservative Party hustings, live in London, hosted by Ian Dale, Hunt and Johnson, in the race to be the next Prime Minister.
Clive Bull on LBC.
So I still remember the feeling of walking into my GCSEs. I think the weeks before, I kind of thought good was going to be good enough. But then I remember in the final lesson before the exams, our teacher left notes on our desks. Mine said, if you're going to think at all, think big. And if you're going to think big, think bigger. I was thinking small, but she inspired me to think otherwise.
Teaching. Every lesson shapes a life. There's still time to apply for teacher training this September. To register, search Get Into Teaching.
Becky, you've been out there for a while. Come and top up your sun cream.
But I'm powering up.
What do you mean?
You can get electricity from the sun, right? So I thought I'd try it too.
I don't think it quite works like that, love. But either way, you need more cream on.
Fine.
At Shell Energy, we supply all our home energy customers with 100% renewable electricity as standard. Just their homes, mind you. Search Shell Energy. Home energy matters. Visit shellenergy.co.uk.
Your company's doing pretty well. Your tax position's okay. So what's keeping you awake at night?
To face the future with confidence, talk to Vision Consulting. We've expanded from Gants Hill to the Gherkin, with clients from the fishmonger to the multi-million-pound property investment company. And our growth as a firm of chartered accountants and registered auditors is based on our passion for our clients' business.
Have confidence in your accountant. See visionconsulting.co.uk.
Would you and your business benefit from a personal approach from your accountant? At Barnes Rofe, of course, our partners have the technical skills needed to offer you first-class audit, tax and accounting advice. But most importantly, we'll work closely with you to help your business grow long-term. Perhaps it's time to see what we can do for you. Arrange your free consultation at barnesrofe.com. Barnes Rofe, clever accountants for business.
At Lidl, we're big on summer fruits. Little fruits, big fruits and super fruits. Big on 400 grams of British strawberries at £1.69. Big on the juiciest blueberries at £1.35. And big on the most mouth-watering watermelon for only 60p a kilo. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores, excludes NI.
Hello, James from Park News Agents here. The talk of the shop is that this Wednesday, the Lotto jackpot must be won. Oh, I knew those trumpet lessons would come in handy. Don't miss it!
Lotto from the National Lottery. Amazing starts here. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Clearance at John Lewis and Partners is now on. There are thousands of great offers across all your favourite brands, from kitchen and homeware to fashion and beauty, as well as expert advice from our partners and a minimum 2-year guarantee on all our electricals. More of what you love for less. Clearance. Ends Sunday.
Business like a boss with a new mobile plan from 3. All the usual stuff you could get from a phone contract, like unlimited data, plus 6 months of exclusive benefits from our partners. Spend less time accounting and more time businessing with FreshBooks. Build a website designed to work perfectly on a mobile with Wix. Get a receptionist that's not your nan at WeWork. And nothing says, I've got this, like a business card from Moo. Get the mobile plan that actually helps your business, because 3 means business. Search 3.co.uk/business for further details.
This is LBC, live from Strasbourg, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
It's the last hustings tonight between Hunt and Johnson. What is that final killer question you would like to see? And Mark in Sunderland wants to ask, what would they do about free TV licences for the over 75s? We never know, Mark. That may well get asked. David says, I want their guarantee that after Brexit we will stay out of the EU. That's an interesting one. I suspect we probably would. Terry in Manchester thinks he'd ask them, what are you going to do about cabinet ministers who constantly leak? Well, the trouble is, Terry, proving these things is not always easy. Let's go to Putney and speak to Linda. Good evening, Linda.
Hi, Nigel.
So,
Hello.
What's the killer question? What is it, Linda? Come on.
Okay, I would like to pin them down and
Yep.
say to them, what about those hard remainers in Parliament, like, for instance, Letwin, Hammond, my MP, Justine Greening,
Yep.
Rory Stewart? They've already threatened to go across the road, wherever that is. I want to pin them down. And I heard Boris the other night say, oh, well, they will just have to look into their hearts. Well, we've been looking into our hearts for 1,000 days.
Yeah, we have. And Linda, look, I mean, I'm with you. You know, the Deputy Prime Minister, David Lidington, was there on Sunday at the Bastille Parade, giving his support to something that President Macron said was to celebrate the beginning of a European Defence Force. And if we've got cabinet ministers who are promoting the idea of a European army that we're going to take part in, I think if Boris is going to show himself to be a serious Eurosceptic, he should simply get rid of Lidington, get rid of Earl, the Chancellor, and put some positive thinkers in place who want to act as a team and make Brexit happen. That's my view, Linda.
Yeah. Also, Nigel, I don't know if you saw it, but Theresa May was questioned by Bernard Jenkins and Bill Cash.
Mm-hmm.
And she was basically sent to seek an extension, not get one, which means it's illegal.
Well, there is an argument. Well, there is a technical, legal argument that extending beyond the 29th of March wasn't fully constitutional and legal. Linda.
Thank you, Nigel. Thank you. Because listen,
that argument
people
is
will
there.
be behind you because of this.
That argument is there, but we are where we are, and that's the difficulty. And the next 29th of March is, of course, the 31st of October, isn't it?
People will honestly come behind you if you acknowledge that. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Linda, thank you very much indeed. And it's a point that keeps being made to me, that the way that May carried out the extension wasn't constitutionally correct. And they're probably right in saying that. But we've got to live with where we are. We're in the middle of July, and we've now got another deadline of the 31st of October. And that, I think, is the political reality. Chris from West Wickham says, the question is, how will you unite the UK? And that is, I think, a really big question, Chris, because, you know, we heard from our friend from Glasgow earlier, who clearly doesn't think too much of the English, but believes that Scotland will have a huge influence here in the corridors of Strasbourg. Well, I suspect he might find out different if that came to be. But this question about uniting the country, I think, actually, at all levels, is a pretty important one. Richard is a new caller from Oxford. Good evening, Richard.
Good evening, Nigel. How are you?
I am well. I'm looking forward to this final hustings, although I kind of suspect there won't be any more surprises, but who knows?
You never know, Nigel. The question I would want to ask, Boris Johnson in particular, because I don't really trust Jeremy Hunt to answer anything truthfully, isn't it about time that we had a national ID card system, given that we've got 1 million undetected illegal immigrants in the country, with more coming across the channel every day? And also, why don't they both make a pledge to slash our foreign aid budget, David Cameron's Vanity Project, and cancel HS2 immediately, George Osborne's Vanity Project?
Oh, you're talking my language, Richard.
To prepare for a no-deal Brexit.
Absolutely, you're talking my language. Let's cut the foreign aid budget in half. That'd be a good start, wouldn't it? Let's scrap HS2, which is undoubtedly going to cost us up to 100 billion, just so that rich London businessmen can go to Manchester and back for the day and get home in time for one more gin and tonic. No, I absolutely agree with you. Boris on HS2, I have to say, is pathetic. Hunt says he supports it. Boris says, well, he sort of doesn't support it, but he sort of kind of does support it, and maybe we'll have an inquiry. And then when you ask Boris, Richard, about the third runway at Heathrow, he says he'll lie down in front of the bulldozers, and then he won't lie down in front of... I mean, one of the problems, Richard, is they don't answer questions, do they?
No, they don't, Nigel. And a fourth question I'd have for them is, why does the BBC business model exist in the year 2019? Why don't we abolish the licence fee as soon as possible?
Richard, we've got to meet. We really have got to meet. We've got so much in common. I will buy you a drink one day. Thank you. I've got time for one last caller. Joe from Uttoxeter is a new caller, a Tory party member. Joe, I'm sorry, time is short, but if you were there tonight as a Tory member, tell me firstly what your question would be, and secondly, how have you voted, or have you voted yet?
Yes, of course. First of all, I voted for Boris. I thought he was the better of the two candidates. I know you pushed for time, so my question is simple. When Parliament did I'll call it opinion poll of the 8 different proposals that were put forward, the most popular one was Ken Clarke's proposal, which was remaining part of the customs union but leaving the single market. So my question would be, in order to have the quickest Brexit possible, if that's the most popular amongst the MPs, would either candidate support that proposal and go with that approach?
But does it matter what the MPs think, Richard, or does it, Joe, sorry, or does it matter what the country thinks?
Well, I guess it's what's best for the country. But in terms of leaving the quick, as soon as possible.
What would you like, Joe? Joe, what would you like?
In essence, I believe the European Union, I not only voted for Leave, I campaigned for Leave. I believe the European Union is a positive force when we're talking trading principles only. It's just such a shame it's shrouded by lack of transparency, basically non-existent democracy and deep corruption. If we could keep those trading principles in place, and retain that as part of membership of the customs union, perhaps we could have the best of both worlds, whereas not being part of the political union.
Joe, I couldn't disagree with you more. I think it's only by breaking free of the customs union and the single market that we can become a competitive global player. Hey, Joe, thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'm handing over to Clive Bull after the news, and of course it'll be Ian Dale for most of the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Nigel, thank you very much. And coming up after 7, the climax to the campaigning to become the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. The final Conservative hustings live from XL London in front of an audience of thousands. It's the biggest event so far, and the final event will be bringing you all of it live here on LBC. Our very own Ian Dale is hosting. Jeremy Hunt and Boris Johnson will face the questions from Ian and from the audience. We may well get further clues as to what the next Prime Minister will have.